After suffering a tough loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers players in the locker room after the game had some concerning comments that make us wonder if Brandon Staley is losing this locker room.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Today, Daniel, it's buy or sell, so that means we got to get into the biggest storylines and overreactions after this latest loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, is Brandon Staley losing the locker room? Has Justin Herbert been better under Kellen Moore? And the Chargers season, is it on life support?
Yeah, man, I mean, after seeing the comments from Austin Ekeler, or hearing the comments from Austin Ekeler, I should say, I mean, there's a lot going on in this locker room right now, which happens when you're 2-4 in the season. But this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, today we're doing buy or sell with the biggest Chargers storylines and overreactions, as we always do on Tuesday, and it feels like there's some really big ones to get into today. But it starts with what happened in the locker room after the game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where Austin Ekeler said this. He was in the, a reporter was asking the question, is there still faith in Brandon Staley? And in the middle of that, Austin Ekeler interrupted him and said, we have no choice, right? And that is the part of this that sticks out. And I'll give you the rest of the quote. But David, that's what makes the first buy or sell this. Brandon Staley is losing the locker room, buy or sell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you can come to any other conclusion but to say that he is losing the locker room. So I'm gonna have to buy it, because the players are the guys that go out there on the field. They're the ones that are playing for their coach, and they're playing for this organization, and they're the ones going out there, and they're gonna have to deal and live with the results. But with what Austin Ekeler has said there, I mean, it seems very, very damning. His words, and I just think that it was just the shortness in his response, Daniel. It was like the reporter didn't even finish the question before he comes out and says, we have to, right? I mean, it was just like a very matter of fact, like, of course, like, I have to be here. I have to say this, or it kind of just slipped out more so. I have to say it, like, it slipped out and he was not expecting it. But I think that was definitely his true feelings in that moment.
Yeah, he said, this was the full quote. We have no choice, right? Yeah, we have faith. Yeah, this is our team. This is who we're riding with. It's all the way to the end, good, bad, ugly, all the way to the end. So I want to give the full context of the quote, but it just, man, it was pretty damning. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you look at that. And obviously we're talking about, somewhat of a disgruntled player who didn't get the contract extension that he's looking for. You can't base the whole locker room based on what one guy is saying afterwards. Of course not. And the other part of it is it's really, really hard to go interview guys and have guys stand up and answer questions, which is part of the job 100%. Yeah. In the heat of the moment, though, and expect not to hear some things like this slip out sometimes at the same time, right? Like, I think that I would sell that he's lost the whole locker room. Like, this is not a team that's not playing hard, right? Like, this is a team that was right in it till the end against the reigning Super Bowl champions who won their 6th game in a row for a reason, right? Like, at the same time, there's not a different way he could have said it to make me any less concerned. Like, seriously, he literally was like annoyed, saying like, we have no choice, right? Like, that is not what you want to hear. That is not a vote of confidence in Brandon Staley by any means. And then he immediately realized how it sounded when it came out of his mouth. So he backtracked a little bit, right? And started saying, yeah, we have faith. Yeah, this is our team. And I'm willing to give some benefit of the doubt here. But like, what I think was just as concerning is that, David, is what you heard from other players in the locker room about what actually happened in the game. So Daniel Popper, credit to him, went to a lot of the players and asked them about the coverage, especially what they did in the first half and why Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were allowed to so easily put up over 300 yards of offense, right, just in Patrick Mahomes' arm by itself, and Travis Kelce absolutely torching them in the first half.
Yeah.
This is just as damning to me. Like, this is the part that's hard to imagine, because Brandon Staley blamed it on a lot of things, said it was loose plays, said it was Patrick Mahomes getting out of the pocket, said that the Chargers ran plenty of man in the first half. But when Daniel Popper asked Michael Davis, and there's some mildly bad language at the end of this, if you have kids, you can skip it through the next minute if you want. But he said, we played zone. Kelsey just goes to the spot and turns around. It has nothing to do with Travis. It's us. We got to get on their ass. When you come down and play the Chiefs, you got to come out and play man and get on their ass. And he's saying they didn't do that. Like, and they obviously didn't do that. We saw how much better they were in the second half when they actually started playing more up and they made things a little bit tougher. And then you have Derwin James straight up saying we played a little bit too much zone in the first half, David. And I don't think they knew what Brandon Staley said right at his press conference, right? They probably didn't hear what he said. So they probably didn't hear him say we played plenty of man. Probably didn't know they were contradicting him. At the same time, man, like, the players, like, if you're selling something and the players know you're doing the wrong thing, that's really tough.
Well, and it's not even just that. It's like everyone is saying the same thing. All of your players are saying the same thing. It wasn't just Michael Davis. It wasn't just Derwin James. It was Jazeer Taylor, too. He said, but once we realized he was eating up the zone like that, which he usually does, we're going to win or lose with man, basically saying, hey, I mean, we recognized too late that we were running too much zone and that Travis Kelce was eating us alive. So we knew we had to transition to go to man coverage, and you got to live or die.
Also said at the beginning of that, like, hey, sometimes you have to play zone coverage, right? He did say that on the front end of that, but you have to adjust quicker. Like, adjust after the first drive, David. Like, not in the second half. Like, that's crazy.
I mean, it was just way too many times where Travis Kelce was just sitting there like, hey, I need the football. I'm all by myself. And it was because they were playing way too much zone. I mean, it was a clear tale of two halves. You played way too much zone in the first half. You got absolutely ignited with gasoline. And then in the second half, you go man to man. You get press. You stay on them from whistle to whistle. And Travis Kelce has 3 catches for 39 yards after going for $180 in the first half. So it's pretty obvious what happened and what the Chargers didn't do. But when the coach is saying one thing and the players are saying something completely different, that is not a good look. That is not something that you want going forward. And the only way to remedy that is to win. If they don't, more of these comments are going to start coming out. And the question of if the Chargers have lost faith in their head coach, those are going to start ringing louder and louder.
And this is what makes it worse. And Daniel Popper did a good job bringing this up in The Athletic in his article after the game, which was Brandon Staley, and this has been circulating, right, all of social media if you haven't seen it. And when he first got there and asked what his plan would be against the Chiefs, this is what he said. You put a bunch of air in the coverage, you'll wake up and they'll have 80%, 85% completion for like 300 or 400 yards. And with their mobility, playing zone is the worst thing to play because you're not connected and they're going to find it. The Chargers were not connected, right? And Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce found it time and time again in that first half. And when you hear that, and it's just like, where's the disconnect? Because as Daniel Popper pointed out, in other games against the Chiefs, he's played the most man that anyone plays against the Chiefs.
It just seems like he got into his own head there, Daniel. It's like, oh, wait, well, I already know the game plan. I know exactly what's going to work, but they know that too, so I have to switch it up. I have to go play zone, even though I know that is not what I need to do.
He outsmarted himself.
Yeah,
like, he was trying to play chess, right? Like
exactly. When you just had to play checkers. Yeah. You just had to play checkers. It was already out there. You knew exactly what you needed to do, and they did the complete opposite.
Yeah, well, that's what he talked about yesterday, just as far as the spiraling nature of this team right now. We'll talk about later, just the position they've put themselves in and what they have to do now to even sniff getting this season back under control, right? Because that's what you're trying to do at this point. Get your head above water before you think about anything else down the road.
Absolutely.
But if these comments are happening right now, David, like, they need to win immediately for these things to stop, because if you keep going out there and the defense keeps looking like this and the team keeps struggling like this, you're only going to see more and more of this, and things are going to continue to get worse. So I don't think he's lost the full locker room right now. I think there's still guys who are going to go in there and, live and die for him and go out and try to do what he's telling them to do. But, like, it feels like those numbers are getting less and less as the weeks continue to go by. And if you keep preaching something that's not working, the players are just going to stop believing it. So we have another big topic coming up after this, because we need to talk about, is Justin Herbert actually getting better under Kellen Moore? Because, David, that's what we were sold right beforehand. This was what Kellen Moore was brought in to do. How much better is Justin Herbert getting? We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs because LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And I think that's super important, especially this time of the year, because you're trying to finish the year out the right way. And the one biggest difference to me about LinkedIn Jobs, which I heard about from my wife, admittedly, who raves about how easy it is to create a free job post, and she's some sort of recruiter, talent acquisition specialist, as she calls it, but how quickly she can make these job posts and get them out to people because she works in the healthcare industry, and if you need nurses, and you got to get them quick, but it's also the quality. That's what she raves about. Getting the right person for your business to go and finish out the year right is important. Make sure you guys check out LinkedIn Jobs because LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I also need to tell you guys about my favorite daily fantasy sports site, and of course, I'm talking about Prize Picks. And with Prize Picks, it's super simple, and that's what I really love about it. It's not just, hey, pick your own fantasy team out and put it against some other fantasy team, and here's your budget. No. So much easier, so much better. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is pick 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. The more entries you hit on, the more you can win. And if you hit up 6 of them in the row, you can win up to 25 times your money. They have great promotions going on all the time. My favorite one is Taco Tuesday, when you get 25% better value on all the projections you're selecting. But this is one that really makes them unique. With the Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. Tell me another place that's doing that. Oh, wait. I mean, that is something that is a game changer. There's nothing worse than having some money on something and then having one of the guys get hurt, and then it throws everything off the track. With Prize Picks, you don't have to worry about that. So go to prizepicks.com and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Code LOCKEDONNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. David, some more big subject matter to get into, and I think the biggest thing for me through 6 weeks is just looking at Justin Herbert, who has struggled over the last 3 games, really, mostly since he fractured the finger, right, which makes everything a lot tougher. Just like last year, it was hard to know, how much this is Joe Lombardi, how much is this Justin Herbert trying to play through fractured rib cartilage, how much is it him not having Keenan Allen last year or having Mike Williams this year? It's very hard to parse all of these things. But now we have a legitimate sample size of 6 games where we can kind of compare and contrast what this offense has looked like under Joe Lombardi last year and now with Kellen Moore. So the buy or sell is this, David. Justin Herbert has improved under Kellen Moore.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard to sit here and say that right now that you think that Justin Herbert has gotten better under Kellen Moore because of how the Chargers have lost the last few games. But I think if you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, you'll see that Justin Herbert has actually improved under Kellen Moore. So I am buying it, and here's the reason why. Last year, Justin Herbert's average depth of target was 7 yards. This year, it's 9.2 yards. That is a gigantic difference. Also, his yards per attempt, last year, 6.8. This year, 7.5. So those are both substantial differences. And then I think once you look at him breaking his finger and then you look at his completion percentages after that, they're all in the 50s, which, I mean, it just basically shows you that injury has definitely had a legitimate impact on him. Also, the Chargers have had absolutely no running game whatsoever, and he's been sacked 15 times already, which he was only sacked 38 times all of last season. So, I mean, he's under a ton of duress, but I feel like Justin Herbert has actually done a little bit more with the plays that he has been given. He's missed a couple shots this year, but I think all of the numbers kind of indicate that he is also a little bit better under Kellen Moore this year.
Yeah, I mean, I could say this. Like, I think the passing game looks better under Kellen Moore this year, but it's hard for me to fully buy that Justin Herbert is actually much better this season than we've seen him.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much better, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me. I'll say this. I don't think Justin Herbert has been better under Kellen Moore so far through 6 games. I mean, I know what you're looking at, but like average depth of target is just how far down the field you're throwing, right? It doesn't mean you're actually connecting on them, right? That's just where you're throwing the football at.
Right.
The yards per attempt has been better through 6 games. This was the first 6 games of 2022. 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 6.7 yards per attempt. First 6 games of 2023, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,592 yards, and 7.5 yards per attempt. So last year he had 130 more passing yards through the first 6 games, but he also threw it way more times, right? Like he threw it 257 times last year. So the passing yards number is inflated this year.
And he has 3 rushing touchdowns this year because he doesn't have to worry about
13 total touchdowns compared to 10 total touchdowns last year. But 4.5 of those games last year that I'm using those numbers for, Justin Herbert didn't have Keenan Allen, right? Or 5 of those games he didn't have Keenan Allen. 4.5 games he was doing that with fractured rib cartilage. So, and you also are taking the worst of the 2 Lombardi years because he was better in 2021 than he was in 2022. I think you have to judge it as a whole. I think by the time this season is done, we're going to say Justin Herbert looks better in Kellen Moore's offense than we did in Joe Lombardi. I like Kellen Moore's offense much more than I did with Joe Lombardi. You have
I hate the lulls. But
when it's clicking though, it looks awesome.
It looks great.
Which is super
it looks
easy
fantastic.
to say. Like it's super easy to say that. Yeah, when it works, it's nice. When Joe Lombardi's offense was clicking, it still wasn't as aesthetically pleasing. It was still getting it 7 and 8 yards at a time. Where now you're actually seeing some explosive plays in the first half. Right, you saw multiple 50-plus yard or 49-plus yard plays. You had one to Josh Palmer and one to Josh Kelly just in the first half.
One in a running play, which is something you didn't see pretty much at all last year.
It's just hard to prove it at this way. It's hard to look at a certain part of Justin Herbert's games, whether it's how he's progressing through his reads, his accuracy, a lot of those things, and say he's much better now than he was in 2022. It's just hard to say that through 6 games. We don't have the full sample size. I think that Kellen Moore is a much better offensive coordinator than Joe Lombardi. It's just hard to sell it right now, coming off of the stretch the Chargers are coming off of. But hard for me to give a hard buy on that it's like, hey, he's doing this better. He's doing this better. Maybe it needs someone that's more technically refined in the X's and O's, and maybe they could tell us that. But, especially over the last 3 games, it's hard to get away from that in this analysis. It hasn't looked much better, right? It's looked pretty bad. And both times, he's been dealing with something. So that's why the next buy or sell is this. The Chargers should have sat Justin Herbert after he broke his finger to let the finger heal.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert, the answer to that question is definitely not. I'm not doing it. I'm not coming out of the game. I don't care. I mean, even when I had fractured rib cartilage and
you have to take that decision away from him. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to sit here and say that the injury has not affected him, but also you have to look at the alternative. Who would be in the game if it wasn't Justin Herbert? It would be Easton Stick. Easton Stick has not played pretty much any professional football at all his entire career. So
you're losing every game that Easton Stick is starting for you.
Period. Right then and there. So absolutely not. Justin Herbert gives even a Justin Herbert at 75, 80% still gives you the best chance to win no matter what, because the alternative is putting a quarterback that has done nothing in the NFL on the football field. That's the simpler reality. And I understand it. I mean, you want Justin Herbert to be 100%. You don't want him to be hampered down. It's clear that it's affecting him, but the alternative is automatic loss. And that's pretty much the way I see it.
You also have to think about it this way. The Chargers couldn't afford to do it with their season kind of already spinning out a little bit at 2-2, not having what they wanted. I mean, if you knew that they were going to lose the Cowboys game and the Chiefs game anyways, you sit them, right? And you hope that 3 weeks with the bye week is enough for it to get healthy. How healthy, how much it's going to fully heal, how long that would take, we don't know, right? Are you willing to miss him for 4 games if that's how long it takes? It's also his non-throwing hand, but as we've seen, it looks like it's affecting him. In the first 3 games of the season, before he fractured his finger, it was 7 total touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
Right.
That's what it was. He obviously injured it on his first interception of the season in Max Crosby's face mask, which was stupid.
Not a good decision,
At the same time, I was looking for guys with their non-throwing hand and breaking a finger there and how much it's affected him, and it's hard to kind of find a ton of precedent. I mean, Matthew Stafford in 2011 broke a finger on his actual throwing hand and didn't miss a game.
That dude is tough, though, man.
He did.
He's super
so is Justin
tough.
Herbert, right?
Yeah.
But in the game that he broke it, he threw 4 interceptions in that game, so he really struggled, obviously. It was against the Bears in 2011. But then he bounced back the next week and had 3 touchdowns and no interceptions with a broken finger on his throwing hand. So I think it's getting better every week. I think he looked better in the Chiefs game than he did in the Raiders game on the whole, right? But it's definitely still affecting him.
Yeah.
And the Chargers can't afford to go out there without him. So that's what puts you in such a tough spot. So I'm going to sell. They should have let him sit because I just don't think they had a chance. And you also have a coach and a general manager that are both on the hot seat. Do you think they want to sit Justin Herbert, right, in the middle of a season where their jobs may be on the line?
Nah.
Probably not, but it does feel like those jobs are very much on the line because right now it feels like the Chargers season is definitely on life support if it's not already over yet. So we're going to talk about buy or sell. The Chargers season is on life support, and also buy or sell. The Chargers should be sellers at the trade deadline coming up right after this. First, though, David, I need to talk to you guys about Game Time, the only place that I get my tickets. If you guys are going to events anyways, go use Game Time. It's that simple. I mean, buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful, and with Game Time, it's fast, easy, and always you can get what you want, whether it's sports, theater, comedy, whatever you're looking for, you can find it on Game Time. And I can tell you guys this right now, there's still tickets available for the Chargers game this weekend against the Chicago Bears. If you want to get in on the action, I'm sure they could use your support in prime time. Guessing it's going to look like mostly a Bears fan, game if we're going based on their history. Hey, do your part, get Game Time, save some money. If you're going to go to the Chargers game, if you want to go to this primetime game, you're knowing that you're going to get the best price because the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find the tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of your ticket. So you can't lose any money. You're always going to get the best price with Game Time. And right now, since you listen to this show, you can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. You're already getting the best price. Now you're getting $20 off of that with code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, more big buy or sells to get into, but first I need to tell you guys to make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL Kickoff every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with the Locked On NFL host. Tanitra Batiste is on there with Jarvis Davis and Kyle Krabs, getting you into every matchup around the league, and Locked On is uniquely equipped to handle that because you can get how each expert feels about their team that week to set your fantasy lineup, do whatever you need to do, find the betting odds, find out which teams to bet on. You can find it all on Locked On NFL Kickoff, 2 p.m. Eastern Time every single Friday on every Locked On NFL channel. David, these next couple bio shells feel like they could have led the show today, right? It feels like there's a lot of big things that are kind of up in the air for this team right now. A lot of big storylines, a lot of big overreactions. And I think one of them that I'm not sure is an overreaction is just that the Chargers season is on life support. Like, I still think it's too early to say the season's totally over. But, David, the buy or sell was this. The Chargers season isn't over, but it's on life support.
Yeah, it's not over. Obviously, there's plenty of time between now and the end of the season. There's a lot of games.
It feels over. We know that, right? And if they keep playing the way they're playing, it is over. But
yes,
we don't know that yet.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, I'm gonna say that I'm selling the fact that it's over, but I'm buying the fact that it is on life support for sure because 2-4 right now after these 6 games. I don't think anybody out here expected that this is where the Chargers were going to be 6 games into this season. I mean, it's got a bad taste in your mouth, and just the way that the division's already gone. The Kansas City Chiefs pretty much already got that wrapped up. So the Chargers have to focus on, and honestly, they can't even really focus on anything playoff related. They got to focus on winning their next slate of games. That's what they got to worry about. They got to focus on that before they can think about anything going on in the future.
Yeah, and that's what this is about. Like, I'm going to buy it too. I mean, you could easily say the season is over. If you say that, I don't blame you for saying that. It does feel like that right now. But, like, also, what, are you just not going to watch the next, 11 games, 12
fans
games,
say that all the time. I mean,
games?
They say it after every loss, but they're going to watch every single
I don't blame
game
him.
anyway.
I don't blame him. And everyone is going to watch, and it could be watching, it could still be over, right? Like, those things can all be true at the same time. But, like, you're 2-4 at this point. You have a 1-3 record against AFC teams, which is going to make things incredibly hard during the tiebreaker. Like, and what they've done is they've completely eliminated their margin for error. Right now, they're only 2 games out of the wild card, and you can say that, which is fine. But like, look at the schedule they have coming up. Right, like where are these wins going to come from that they're going to need to get to a 10-win number? Right, to get to 9-8. And right now, it's truly just about getting to 500. Getting your head above water and seeing what happens. But I'll tell you this right now, David, like this next 4 game stretch, I mean, you can start with Sunday. Like the season could be ended on Sunday. You lose to the Bears, that's a must win now. It feels like the Jets game is a must win now. Get back to 4-4 and see what happens. But it feels like over these next 4 games, they have to probably go at least 3-1. Like, is the worst that they can do to even give themselves a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm right there with you as well. I mean, obviously you want to see 4-0, but I mean, you're going up against the Lions, who, I mean, I know they just got their butt whooped by the Baltimore Ravens, but I still feel like they're a very good football team, very physical football team. That still scares me. I just don't feel like the Chargers really match up too well.
How could you pick them? How could you pick them to win that game?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. And you know me, I'm pretty much one of the most optimistic Charger fans out there, but I can't.
It's the Bears, Jets, Lions and Packers.
Yeah.
So that's where you need to go. You need to get 3 out of 4 of those, one way or the other.
Absolutely. And then you got to go 3-1, get back to 500 with 7 games to play, and then kind of let the chips fall where they may. I mean, that's what happened last year for the most part. I mean, they got back to a 500 base, and then they ripped off a couple of wins to, seal things up towards the end of the season. But that's what they absolutely have to do here. And if they don't do that, then you can write things off pretty much right after this week.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you want to show me that the season's not over? Go 4-0 in that stretch, right?
Yeah.
Get to 6-4, and then we can talk about the season not being on life support, right? But like, this is why the next couple of weeks get a little bit more interesting, right, and a little bit more confusing as far as what they should do, because the trade deadline's coming up on Halloween.
Yeah,
they only have a little bit of time left before, if they're going to make additions or get rid of guys. There's not very much time left. So that's why the buy or sell today, David, is this. The Chargers should be sellers at the trade deadline, buy or sell.
Yeah, I can't buy it right now. I'm going to sell it right now, but I'm selling it with the caveat that if you lose to the Chicago Bears on Sunday night, then yes, you should absolutely be sellers, because at 2-5, I mean, that's pretty. I think that's a hole that's insurmountable. I don't think that you can dig yourself out of that. I think you definitely should try to ship off some of your higher priced guys and let the young kids play and see where they're at and see what they can kind of do with the rest of this season. But there's no way that they should lose to the Chicago Bears, going up against an undrafted free agent quarterback. And a team that's just in flux. I mean, they're not a good football team. The Chargers should go in here, and I've said this many times, and I know that the Chargers have lost these games that they should win. They should not lose to the Chicago Bears. If they lose, they should sell. That's it.
I think the problem is you have a coach and a general manager who aren't incentivized to get worse, right? Like, if it was just a coach, you'd hope that the general manager could put that aside and worry about the future, because the chances of you making the playoffs have already gone down to pretty much nothing so far in 2023. I think the other big thing is people want a fire sale, and those things just don't happen in the NFL, and there's a lot of almost untradeable contracts on the Chargers roster. Like, think about this. You traded J.C. Jackson, right, which everyone knows is a good thing. They had to do it. Just from that, you took $20 million in dead cap in 2024.
Yeah.
How many of those deals, like, you can't jeopardize the future either.
Yeah.
Either way, like, I also don't want them to go spend a second-round pick on a rental for this season either, right, to try to make this team better. Like, if you can find a blocking tight end or help in the secondary, right, or help in this team with a pick swap in the 6th and 7th round, like, which is what they got back for J.C. Jackson. Okay, I'm not going to kill them for that at all. At the same time, though, people don't get traded for as much as people think they're going to get traded for either. Like,
never.
Kevin Byard just got traded for a 5th and a 6th round pick and Terrell Edmonds, right, to go to the Eagles. Like, the Eagles
and he's one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, like he's a little older now. We're talking about an all-pro level safety going for no day 2 picks, right? A couple of late day 3 picks. And a player, obviously, that wasn't getting the job done for them anyways in Philly, right? And just, hey, here's a scab that you can put in place of the guy you're losing, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's the hard thing about it. Like, the Chargers aren't going to, recoup some 3rd and 4th round picks from this. Like, you're talking about, like the most interesting one is Austin Ekeler. Like, can you get something for an expiring contract with Austin Ekeler? Because those are the ones that are you can actually move more easily, right? Like, the Bills would make a ton of sense. Do the Bills want Austin Ekeler to make a run? Problem is they have like $900,000 in salary cap space this year. So, like,
yikes.
There's a lot of things that go into it. Like, I don't want the Chargers mortgaging their future and trying to trade a bunch of people or, trade for a bunch of people to try to just make one desperate last gasp this year if you're giving away meaningful capital down the road. I don't want them to do that. But at the same time, I don't know what they're getting a lot for on this team right now. Like Michael Davis, Austin Ekeler, expiring contracts like that. Does anyone want Gerald Everett? Those are all going to open up gigantic holes on your team and are basically punting the season away anyways, and it's going to get even harder to get the guys you have left in this locker room to buy in. So nothing easy for them. It's going to be some tough decisions that have to get made. I'd much rather them, spend something late and get something that maybe helps them in the short term this year. If they can get a 5th round pick, 6th round pick for someone like And Austin Ekeler, maybe you do that, right? Hard to see it happening, though, at this point. So we're going to get into much more tomorrow because we're turning the show over to you guys because it's Fan Mail Wednesday. We're getting into our Chargers mailbag tomorrow. If you guys want to hit us up, you can do it on Twitter at LockedOnLAC or get your voicemail on the show like a tier and call into 323-524-7924. You can also hit me up at Dan Talk Sports on Twitter, and David Drogmeyer's DMs on Twitter are always open at DroTalk SD. Again, if you want to get in the voicemail line, that's 323-524-7924. But even if you hit us up in the YouTube comments or on Instagram at Locked On Chargers or on our Facebook page, Locked On Chargers, we will answer any of your questions anywhere. So make sure you guys get your questions in so they can be answered on tomorrow's show, where we'll get into, I'm sure, even more storylines and also Quentin Johnston, who again is underused in this offense. But we'll talk to you guys then. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.